I don't... It's a good point. What do you think, Adam?
Well, I'm not entirely...
Well, apropos of which, I don't care... I mean, it feeds into our... It's not so much for me... You see, I don't think Pinter's that good anyway. But now, whether or not he's not that good because of the Jewishness is the... Do you think, Adam?
Oh,
well, you're looking really nervous.
No, well, I think we're being a little unfair to poor Harold. I mean, there is his play Ashes to Ashes, which is pretty explicitly about the Holocaust. So I don't know if it's entirely fair to say that there's no Jewishness there. And actually, one of the things I like about Ashes to Ashes is it's certainly true that you don't know if the characters in it are Jewish. For those of you who don't know this rather horrible play, it essentially involves... It's a two-hander, as far as I remember. Basically, a woman is remembering, and it's obviously almost as a sexual fantasy, is remembering being in the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. And you just have no idea whether these are two non-Jewish characters playing out a rather kind of nasty sex fantasy, a sort of S&M fantasy, whether this is actually a sort of therapy session for someone who was really, so there's nothing sexual at all. And I think there's a way in which that's true of a lot of Pinter, that it's true that I can't think of a kind of explicitly Jewish moment. But
isn't one of the characters explicitly Jewish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Goldberg. Yeah. Well, you come on.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Does he have to spell it out?
And it's not quite clear. Isn't Goldberg one of the really thuggish, nasty
Yeah,
characters?
he's the nasty guy.
He's the nasty guy. So isn't it an inversion? Isn't Pinter saying Jews can be nasty guys? When was the birthday party written? The early 50s?
Early 50s.
Early 50s? What's Pinter saying with Goldberg in the birthday party? I mean, my arguments with Pinter and Ashes to Ashes, and I will certainly immediately go home and select it from my large Pinter library and sit down. It's good to hear you to come out and bat for him.
But it's true that I don't really like Pinter.
Would like, of course, being a cricket
You would
fan.
like the cricket metaphor, yes. No, Pinter's not one of my favourite writers, but I think that... I suppose I want to say I don't see why he should even be Jewish in his writing. You know, I don't think that's an important criterion for a writer. That I think one of the things we're trying to get at is if what we want is a great stylist, the style should...
Okay, so but where does he fall within the dialectic? Is it that the Pinter didn't wish to... Is it now we're looking at him through the lens of an identity politics that he himself was not involved in? Was it that he felt that he was sui generis, as all good writers should be, and that he didn't need to address that? Or might we also argue that it is an aspect of being in the world, and maybe it is a lack in his writing not to consider it? Do we think, for example, that Beckett, who is the obvious progenitor to Pinter, paid attention to his Irishness? Yes, he certainly did.
But I suppose I'm making up this theory now.
Is Beckett a more significant dramatist than Harold Pinter?
Yes.
Why, yes.
But I don't think that's got anything to do with either the Irishness or the Jewishness.
Maybe it does.
Well, maybe it does.
Maybe
but I suppose I'm wanting to make up a theory now, deny in 2 minutes' time, that, that there is a way, I think, in which he treats... There is a whole kind of the technique of silence in Pinter, the technique of something being talked about without it being talked about.
So you think all of those pauses...
It was always Jewish.
All of the, if you filled in all the pauses in Pinter, they'd be characters going, I'm Jewish, actually. Anybody else? There's a gentleman here, could you want to come to you?
There can be many rational reasons why a Jew, half-Jew, quarter-Jew wishes to distance themselves from their Jewishness. But surely it is not the Jewish community that will decide yes or no. Wouldn't you agree with me? It's the Gentile community that decides. If you are in a discussion and someone says to you, you are a Jew, no matter how much you have distanced yourself at that moment, you are a Jew.
The concentration camp theory of Jewishness. I mean, I don't think you can... I mean, it's evidently true that when you were in that concentration camp saying, but honestly, I never believed any of it. There's actually a memoir I remember reading of a Jewish guy who got picked up in Paris and got taken to Auschwitz. And he wasn't initially selected for the gas chambers. And in the changing room, because he was going to be kind of kept alive for that period, everyone bursts out laughing as he gets undressed. And he says, "Why are you laughing at me?" And they look at his penis, which is uncircumcised. And they say, "You could have got out." And it never even occurred to him that he could have used this. And there's a way in which I think kind of, it's true that a Gentile, you know, that when you're, once you're there, then you're Jewish. But I think that you still have to have the freedom, surely, to...
Well, I mean, it is the index of living in a society that is not defined by anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
You know, just as your freedom to say that you're African Caribbean or you're black or you're mixed race depends on a society in which a fundamental aspect of hierarchy. You know, so surely we need to, we need to be moving towards a society in which your Jewishness is not defined by what the majority say about it, but is defined by your own existential decision. Surely. I mean, isn't that the index of a free society? So I think I set out the stall on this at the beginning and said I did understand, I was old enough to remember, even in early adulthood, a situation in this country, casual anti-Semitic remarks made by the majority. I think there's a distinction to be drawn between the kind of anti-Semitism that was prevalent even in English society, in American society in the 1940s, 50s, into the 60s, and the kind of problems that we have now with the anti-Semitism that is used politically within the Muslim community. That's a different thing as far as I'm concerned. It's not the same thing, because it's not to do with majorities. This is to do with an internecine conflicts within the society. Yeah. So that's a separate issue. But I don't think, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, we can get into this, I have not casually heard among middle-class Gentiles in this country people make anti-Semitic remarks for quite a while. I don't know, maybe people are going to chime up and say, "Oh, we hear them all the time."
We've got one.
Let the microphone go to this.
To the anti-Semitic comments.
Yeah.
My accent, I'm Israeli.
Okay.
I immigrated to this country in my early 20s, so that must have been about 18 years ago. I would say 15 years ago I worked in a law firm. All the other trainees were English, upper middle classes, Oxbridge educated. And one day we were asked to work late on the judge bundle, as it often happens in law firms, commercial law firms. And the law firm was called Rubinstein, Cullingham, Bolden. And one of the other trainees casually said, "Frankenstein, Killingham." And another trainee said, "So saying the bosses are working us overtime, the Jews are drawing blood tonight." I could not. The ringing in my ear, and all this time I'm sitting there and my name is Rubinstein as well.
Well, that certainly is a counterexample. I wouldn't deny that. And a guy came to interview me, younger guy in his 20s who'd grown up in rural Norfolk, and he said, and was Jewish, English Jewish, and he said, actually, I used to hear a lot of anti-Semitic remarks in the playground when I was a kid, so it may be a kind of slightly metropolitan, blinkered view to say this kind of thing has faded away. Listen, I'm conscious that we're in fact well over time, but that we've barely scratched the surface of this subject, and I feel that what we're going to do is tell the rest of the book festival to just piss off and just get on it. Get on with it for, you know, another 4 or 5 hours. What do you think?
Thank you so much to Will and Adam for an absolutely fascinating conversation with very few pauses, but still wish. Both Will and Adam will be signing books in the book fair straight away, and if you enjoyed that, then please do join Will Self. He'll be in conversation with David Eagleman at the Jewish Book Week after party on Afterlife on March 25th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.